Okay. All right. So it's 11 a.m. here, and I think it's 9:30 in India.
Yeah,
Can we start?
sure.
Okay. So welcome everyone. I thank you for joining in, and we have with us Dr. Rajat Mitra. Dr. Mitra is a UN awardee, and he is a psychologist. He resides in Delhi. And today we will be talking with him about the psychological impact of what the film Kashmir Files has had on the Hindu society. With that, I'd like to start with my first question. Uh, Dr. Mitra, you must have been around in 1990 when the Kashmiri Pandit exodus happened,
Yes.
and you are around today when the Kashmir Files came out. Could you please walk us through the difference in reactions back then in 1990 when the actual exodus happened and what the reaction looks like today? How differently have the Hindus reacted, and what does that tell you about it?
Okay. First of all, let me say this that I was not only not there at that time, but this uh, exodus, this genocide has also a personal meaning for me. I'm married into a Kashmiri family, and my wife's family was living in Srinagar at that time. They were living in a place called Ranawari, and they had to leave their home and go away. And their home was on the side, just on the side of the Dal Lake, and it was the tallest building. It was called the Tikku's house, and it was taken over by the militants who established their courts over there. It was a seven-story house, and the first two floors were the lower court, then the middle, high court, and then the Supreme Court on the top floor. So I heard Kashmiri Pandits at that time, talk about what they had faced, and I am also hearing them talk about it now. You asked me what is the difference between the two, how they were responding then and how they are responding now. At that time, the response was in secret. It was in hush hush tones. It is as if we should not even talk about it. Even talking about it would somehow, bring more misfortune on us. Nobody wanted to talk about it then. There was a culture of silence. That culture of silence is not there. It has kind of, been slowly breaking. And with this movie right now, we see that the culture of silence is completely, broken. Like today in India, we can divide Indians into two groups: one who have seen Kashmir Files and one who haven't. So, it is that's the way I see. I don't see any other movie, being discussed or talked threadbare in that way. Like I'm a professor in a university. Uh, some of the other professors and teachers came to me and said, "Have you seen Kashmir Files?" And they were asking those who have not seen it to go ahead and see it. So I divide Indians right now into two groups: those who have seen Kashmir Files and those who have not. And the number of those who have is increasing. So in the 30 years when this has happened, I see that we have finished a journey which actually happens by and large with all genocides. We wait for one generation or so before we start talking about it, before literature, movies come up and break open the shell that kept it hidden. And that is what has happened right now. So the element of safety, that if I am silent, I am safe, this movie has broken that shell. And that is the biggest change that I see right now happening in India.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that really speaks volumes, when you can divide a society based on people who have seen a movie and not, so would it be uh, proper to classify this not just as a movie, but as a documentary, not just as a piece of art, but an achievement in documenting human suffering? So when you see the movie, and there are so many reactions that come out, uh, one question that I would like to ask based on the reactions that have come out is, how does a normal person react to such excruciating pain inflicted on him? And how do Hindus react to such excruciating pain inflicted on them? And what do you think is the main difference? You just told us that Hindus assume that being silent is ensures their safety. Yes, there is one big difference, but there might be some other differences as well, which led them to be silent for 30 years. Because uh, for all practical purposes, you cannot go through a genocide and be silent about it. I have met people who have been through genocides, like the Jews. I've I've personally had friends who were Polish Jews. My professor was a Rwandan Tutsi, and he told me stuff, and they're all very vocal about it. So, what is the psychological makeup of a Hindu that makes him silent for 3 decades? 3 decades is a long time. It's almost 1.5 generations. One somebody who was just born in, let's say, 1988. Today, he might have a kid who is 5 or 6 years old, and that's a good age to start teaching about your ancestors. We start teaching our mantras, Vedas, everybody. I mean, I teach my kids mantras now who are about that age, and that's a good age to start. So 1.5 generations, how do you sit quiet? And what part of your psychological makeup makes you sit quiet for such a long time? What is the difference between a normal person who reacts to such pain and a Hindu who doesn't react or reacts to such pain?
I would say that the way we Hindus have reacted to this is by and large similar to the way the Jews or others have reacted to genocide. First of all, the language of trauma is silence. When an overwhelming trauma happens, we immediately become silent because the most important issue for us at that time is safety. So because we are threatened with issues of safety, that's why we decide not to talk about it. So I don't think that the Hindus have reacted in any different way than, say, the Jews or Rwanda or any other mass violence which has happened in the history of the world has taken place. Second, what you said about how does a normal person react to trauma of this kind? The normal person reacts to such a trauma by becoming silent, not really fighting, And when you ask about how is it that it took the Jews so much time and what is happening over here in Hindus, the Jews were, they were they were very individualistic. They were not collective. Like 100 years back, if you were to ask a Jew in, say, Germany or USA about their identity, they would say, I'm a German Jew, I'm an American Jew. The word American or German came first, right? But when they got their land, Israel, they all started saying, I'm a Jew and only a Jew. So the identity changed. And Jews were traders. They were not really fighting people. And what we know today is that the British, they thought that the Jews would be exterminated in their fight with Arabs, whatever is left of them. But the Jews fought back very valiantly and they defeated all of them. because they turn from being an individual to a collective. That's what it is. That's what Pottenham came about, right? And that also happened slowly. Like, for example, for Jews, it was the Eichmann trial, which happened. Then the fact that there were other movies and books that were brought about. All those things helped them to come forward and start talking about it. It did not happen really immediately. What this movie has done, for India right now is that it has opened a raw, wound. And if we look at it in terms of just the Kashmiri genocide, it is linked with all the traumas that the Hindus have gone through, whether at partition or whether during the Gothra riots, or many of them throughout centuries. What we call as transgenerational trauma. One trauma is linked to all other traumas. So it is like, for example, if you talk to a Jew about their trauma, they go back all the way to 11th century, then 9th century, then 2000 years back. In the same way, this is the same thing that has happened for Hindus also, that all the traumas that we have gone through, there is suddenly that, people are talking about it, and they are, being vocal about it now. So there is a language that is forming for the, traumas. And that is something that I would say that our society, the Hindu society, is finding a language of its own to describe the traumas that it has gone through. And it's a very powerful process, because it is giving us an identity which was fractured till some time back. So that is what has happened as a result of this movie, coming about. It is making us more vocal and giving us a voice and identity.
Well, that's true. So when you said the Jews were very individualistic, and they used to say that I am a German Jew, a Polish Jew, a Russian Jew, I was speaking to one of a noted Kashmiri Pandit activist, and he also said that we were Kashmiri Hindus, and that's why we were persecuted like that. And it suddenly struck me that we Hindus are pretty similar like that. But when we say that I'm a Tamil Hindu, I'm a Telugu Hindu,
Yeah.
Odia, or I'm a Kashmiri Hindu. Uh, and you said that a reckoning of sorts, or I'm sorry to say reckoning, but almost a genocide of brought the Jews together. So, and Hindus have undergone multiple such reckonings, but we still fail to see the idea of unity coming to fruition within our society. Uh, I know it's a political failure on one part, but the society also has some culpability in this, because it is almost criminal that Hindus are left to their own devices when they are under attack, right? So what sort of a reckoning would harden that psyche that you get from a defensive posture to an offensive posture? How would that change be brought about?
That change has to probably come at multiple levels. One is changing the educational system. Okay, that's one. Now, I give you an example. I mean, I'm a professor, I teach, and one of the subjects that I teach is post-traumatic stress, or trauma in societies. Uh, Often in my class, there have been Kashmiri Muslims and also Kashmiri Hindus. Now, whenever I talk about trauma, the Kashmiri Muslims always get up and talk about the trauma on themselves, what they have gone through. Kashmiri Hindus have boys, girls, students, that is, they never get up in the class and talk about what happened to them, right? Now, I wonder why. I mean, so I asked one of them, and they said that our family has told us that we should not talk about our trauma outside. So therefore, we keep silent, right? So
Yeah,
I
that's
talk
something
about
I
it.
notice a lot.
Sorry?
No, that is something I notice a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I've spoken
So
to a lot of them, and none of them have told their children what happened to them, what they went through.
sure.
I'm sorry.
So we don't have that culture of talking in the family about the trauma. We are still keeping it a secret. So our schools, our families, our temples need to start talking about on a mass scale about what has happened to us as Hindus. So if, for example, if you see an average Hindu priest today, he his knowledge is his entire work is limited to fixing dates for different religious functions. He does not he's not taking the lead in coming forward and talking about the fights, the struggle that Hindus have gone through in keeping their religion alive, right? This is a story that is should be told in the schools. It should be discussed in the families. So if it is just a few people, I mean, say someone like me, a professor, or other activists who talk about it, it is not going to become a movement. It is going to become a movement when it starts getting talked in every family, and people start discussing it at a macroscopic level across all levels of society.
Okay. So coming to intergenerational trauma, I mean, there were studies done, and I think you are the one who is best to speak about transgenerational trauma. You've written a book about it as well.
Yeah.
Uh, Transgenerational trauma is carried from one generation to another. So, will this movie break that trauma being carried forward anytime soon, or is it just a starting point for us?
I think it is both. It is a starting point, and it will also take it further. There will be more movies, there will be more books, there will be more literature. It is as if we say that the floodgates would open, with that. So today, it has shaken many institutions in India. For example, it has shaken Bollywood to its very core because this movie has kind of shown a mirror to Bollywood, saying that what kind of a false and hypocritical industry it is. So it has shaken up Bollywood. It has shaken up the political establishment. It has it has shaken the criminal justice system that we kept silent about it, and our judges, they did not talk about the trauma of the Kashmiri Pandits, and they deliberately kept it hidden. But they, at the same time, they have no problems talking about the trauma of Kashmiri Muslims or uh, traumas which have even taken, for example, Sikh traumas which have taken place earlier. So it has shaken up actually our conscience, a lot of institutions in the country, and it is somewhere making Indians a questioning nation. An average Indian today has begun to ask questions, and as we know that the the average Indian was someone who I would describe as a very adaptive, pliable character. He is no longer so after this movie has come about.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That an average Indian or an average Hindu has been hard done by the state, and at very various levels, the Indian state has failed him. So let's talk about that a little bit. Uh, a defeatist mentality doesn't come through by itself. There are n number of factors that uh, affect it or bring it into existence. And one of the recurring themes that Kashmiri Pandits have told me, or they have said that on various many forums, is that they used to live in Kashmir believing in the Indian constitution. They believed in the people, the police, the arms of the Indian state, the judiciary, and they thought that the army was there in the barracks. So if anything, if really push comes to shove, the army would come and save them. But in 1990, neither did the army come. And I think very recently, the Supreme Court dismissed a petition asking by the Pandits asking for justice. So when all these things happen, how does a person not feel defeated or resigned to his fate? And how much of such defeat and unjustified injustice can he take? And if things turn for worse, would such people be to blame? You know, having undergone a genocide, an ethnic cleansing in the 20th century, how far should one take this? So that's all I'm asking. So please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think you talked about defeatist mentality. The Kashmiri Pandits, their genocide started from the 15th century, the 14th, 15th century onwards, right? In that way, it has a parallel to the Native Americans. Like if you see, Native Americans were sprawled all across America, and now they are just limited to a few reservations.
Right.
In the same way, Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Hindus, I should say, they were all across Kashmir and elsewhere. Now they are restricted to only a few pockets, right? So it is the coming to an end of a way of life, a society. It's coming to end of a way of life of society. They withdrew onto themselves. Like if you see, all Kashmiri Hindu festivals are within homes. Like, for example, now in India, there is Navrata going on. People are outside on the streets. But if you see Kashmiri festivals, they always take place inside the home. And they did it because they were scared of, punished or, being exterminated. So they took their festivals inside. Like if you see Hindu festivals in the south of India, they happen outside the home, right? But Kashmiri festivals, they all happen inside the home. They withdrew and they survived through their withdrawal. They built their resilience through the withdrawal. So I won't exactly call it a defeatist mentality.
No. Let me just explain myself. I was not referring to a defeatist mentality. I was saying that why shouldn't one despair in defeatist attitude when everybody who you love, trust, abandons you? I mean, people who were totally responsible for keeping you secure, they just hang you up to dry and you don't have any other means. And in such despair or in such defeat, if you go the other way, are you to blame? That was my question. No, I'm totally not saying that Kashmiri Pandits have this mentality.
No, I entirely agree, Shauri, with you that I don't think that was it. But many people have pointed out that they did not survive because of their defeatist mentality. So therefore, I'm just clarifying that. To me, Kashmiri Hindus are resilient people, and the resilience in the community still remains. It is something that's very much there. In the same way that I would call Native Americans resilient people, they are a small portion, a small number of them are still holding on to the essence, the very core of the society. I mean, this is something you see with Tibetans. This is something you see with Parsis. There are groups across the world who are holding on to their essence and have not given it up. So if you see Kashmiri Hindus today, they hold on to their rituals, their way of thinking, their literature, and they're bringing it up slowly. So if you see people, for example, who have gone through 5 centuries of extermination, this is a remarkable way in which they are coming out. Now the thing about nobody supporting them, nobody coming out. Whenever a genocide happens, the world is silent. I mean, when the Jewish genocide happened, America was silent. When the Tibetan genocide happened, the world was silent. When the genocide in Bengal, the world was silent. So where has the world ever taken any proactive steps to stop a genocide? It has never done so. When I have spoken to Kashmiri Pandits, and they say कि कोई हमारी help करने नहीं आया, nobody came to our help. And when I talk to them about the fact that in every genocide across the world, nobody has come for help, they have begun to accept that reality and not question it. So they don't feel very defeated by the world. They feel that if this has been so, we will rise up again and we will regroup together. Their strength lies in uh, probably being good in administration, good in good as officers. They limited themselves to that on education, and that is something that will again help them to come out of that. They see one of their strengths as they have not picked up arms. They have not become violent or traumatized in the sense to become terrorists. They see that as their strength, and they see education as their strength. And I think that that is the same that the Jews have had, that they saw their education as strength. So to me, they will bounce back and come out of it in 2 to 3 generations.
Okay. Now, for a mea culpa question, you said that they were not defeated by the world, but in terms of being defeated, did we Hindus let them down? And is this and has this movie assigned that sense of guilt to a Hindu who was probably unaware of such things happening, and his brother Hindu was being massacred in Kashmir, and he was not allowed to have that knowledge that one of his brother Hindus was being massacred there? And is a common Hindu now acting out as a reaction to that guilt, feeling of guilt, or is this genuine sympathy that yes, there was a Hindu who was persecuted, massacred, and I did not do anything, or the state which I entrusted with the safety of my fellow citizens didn't do anything? Is that coming out now? Is that a perspective that can be explored anymore? I mean, from now on.
I think I don't see the average Hindu today as being guilty as much as feeling a sense of helplessness and anger that I did not do anything. So I see the average Hindu being angry, and something that is happening, which has not happened before, is that the average Hindu is directing his anger towards the perpetrators. There is no longer an attempt to put a lid, a cover on the perpetrators, because what they see is that when this happened in Kashmir, it happened with the participation of the average Kashmiri Muslim. It was the average Kashmiri Muslim who came out, who supported that. So all the mosques, they read out the slogans about the Kafirs leaving the valley. So the average Hindu today is probably seeing the role of the average Kashmiri Muslim today who drove out the Hindus. So they are no longer blaming themselves, but realizing that it was a mass community outbreak of violence. It was an organized violence. It was a very systematized violence, like it was a genocide. And one of the myths of the Kashmiri Hindus that has broken is that many have broken, still some remain, is that, we were living in peace before, and suddenly one day, something happened and it changed. So I was having a talk with someone and I said, on the one hand, you say that it was a genocide. On the other hand, you say that you are living in peace and something just happened one day. So genocides do not happen like that. In behind every genocide, there is decades, centuries of animosity and hatred that the other group has towards you. So in this case, either it is a genocide or it did not, or it happened the way you are describing. So he said that it was a genocide. I understand it was a mistake for us to believe that we were living in perfect harmony and peace. We did not. And that denial has kind of broken from Kashmiri Hindus right now, where they saw the Kashmiri Muslim as someone who was a brother in arms and who participated in his festivals and who was there to care for him and who remains the same. They realize that it is not that. That is not the realistic image of a Kashmiri Muslim that they carry inside.
Well, yeah. To that, my next question is, talking about the film now. In the movie, the old man, Anupam Kher ji has portrayed that role. And the lady, I think the actress is Bhasha Shumli ji. I mean, I know for a fact, but I would like to hear it from you. Did they suffer from PTSD? And what is the occurrence of PTSD across the Kashmiri Hindu community, and how much have they been cared for, and how much has it changed after this movie came out? Because we are talking about the impact this film has had on society, and they are a part of our society still, and we would love them to be, but if we have to care for them, we also have to understand what they have been through. And if you want to care for a person with PTSD, I know for a fact that you need to address some core things. So I just want to know, are they suffering from PTSD, and what is it that we as Hindus can do to ameliorate that or improve that condition?
I worked in the Kashmiri Pandit camps and also with many people in a private capacity. As I told you that my wife and I, we are both clinical psychologists, and we had a number of Kashmiri Hindus who came to us for help. So if I see a realistic, approximate estimate, I would say that after 1990, almost 20 to 28%, somewhere between that amount. I said 28%.
That's very high.
That's very?
No, that's very high percentage of people.
Yeah. So
the soldiers returning from Afghanistan.
That was, yeah, there was no, I mean, there actually has been no very accurate study, that could be done with this group. But 20 to 28% is what I found in, the community. And the thing is that many of them were, there was a high morbidity rate. There was a high also mortality rate because of the shift that took place in them. What also happened is that in the present, when this movie has come about, it is again, enhancing the symptoms, because many people are breaking down and having PTSD symptoms after doing that. And it is also not just the Kashmiri Hindus, but many Hindus are having, this kind of reaction where they may be said to be going through PTSD. So as I said, it has opened a raw wound. And I think the next step is for the, for healing and reconciliation for the community, and maybe establishment of some kind of a truth and reconciliation commission, which documents all their trauma and puts it up to the United Nations and human rights bodies across the world, which can legitimize what really happened with them. That is very necessary to do in order to heal the community as a whole.
But that is where I differ from a lot of people, that across the world, from historical experiences, truth and reconciliation committees have not helped a lot. One example is South Africa, where they had the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, but they came, and what they did was they had the white apartheid enablers say or speak out all the atrocities or heinous crimes they committed, and then they go back and gloat about it. But they went all scot-free just because they just confessed to all their crimes. And would it work in this case? Because that definitely will have some kind of effect on all of us. If people come out and confess their crimes, I mean, all these crimes that we see in the movie are the ones which were told by the survivors. Now, if the people come out and confess, and if the crimes turn out to be gorier than what was generally accepted, I mean, it's a dam that's waiting to be broken, I would say. So, and I don't see reconciliation happening. Do you think that reconciliation is possible?
Uh, I don't see reconciliation at the moment till the time the perpetrators acknowledge their crime. I don't see that happening until and unless perpetrators do so.
Even after,
But what is,
even
but
after.
what is, yeah, but what is important is that we must strive for it, right? We must go ahead and ask for it. We must point out to the perpetrators what they have done, ask them to come. I don't know whether they will come or not, but what is important is to become assertive on the side of the Kashmiri Hindus, document the crime, and go about it in a systematic, organized way. And I do not think that the traditional justice mechanisms, that the way they exist in India, they can address this issue. I do not see so. I mean, if you see the Supreme Court, they have rejected the Kashmiri Pandit petition. The traditional justice mechanisms have completely failed over the last 30 years. So how can you go back to them and say that, please hear us once again? How I don't believe in pleading for it and asking for it, right? Now, when I talk about Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I don't mean that reconciliation in the sense of that, okay, everything is over and it should be forgotten. No, the purpose of reconciliation is to acknowledge. Now, that may happen, that may not happen. The chances at the moment are that that will not happen. But I think that we should still go ahead and demand it. And we should still go ahead and say that this is what we owe, from the Kashmiri Muslims, from others, right? Whether they come after that or not is something which is their choice and what they want to do with that. But we must ask for it. Kashmiri Pandits do not ask or demand explanations as to why Kashmiri Muslims did that to them. We need to start with that. And this is something I have written in a number of posts. The thing is that the world does not know about it as yet. The world has a very different picture. So you need to go ahead and portray, share it with the world. When Truth and Reconciliation Commission happened in Africa, it brought the trauma of the Blacks out in the forefront for the entire world to see. And that, I think, was the biggest achievement of Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We need something of a similar nature over here in order to portray the trauma of the Kashmiri Pandits to the world.
Yeah, no, I think that one thing that you said, why don't Kashmiri Pandits ask the Muslims why they did them, why they did what they did to them, is the answer is pretty obvious. I mean,
Yeah,
they were
I
Hindu.
agree that,
They were
yeah,
Hindu. So there's
they
a
were Hindus.
point in
I
asking.
agree. Yeah,
And
I agree, but we need to ask that officially. We need to ask that. We need to ask that with assertion right now. Hey, why did you do that to us? I think that is important. We have not done that.
no, yeah, you're right. And so coming to that again, you said that it is important for us to ask assertively. And this brings back us to the first question that I asked. When does the Hindu psyche face a point of reckoning that it starts to behave assertively? You know, and you said that at what is the point of inflection for the Hindu psyche? Like, you underwent a genocide in 20th century, you underwent an ethnic cleansing in 20th century, you underwent a genocide in 1975. So that in 20th century you underwent a genocide as well. So that inflection point, have we reached that point yet? As a psychologist, what do you think about it? And before you answer, just a second, to anybody who all the audience, if you can please type in your questions in the chat box. I'd start taking questions at 11:50, which is in about 10 minutes from now. Thank you.
Your question is, have we reached that point of inflection?
Yeah.
I believe that we have almost reached that point right now. We are very close to it, and we have almost reached it. We need to demand answers for all what has happened to us, and ask it from the people who did this to us. So whether it is the Christians in Goa, Saint Xavier's and the Inquisition, whether it is the Kashmiri Muslims, or whether it is the Muslims in Bengal, we need to document that and start asking for it. So until unless we raise questions, we will not be able to, find justice for ourselves. That's what I feel.
Okay. So let me ask you this then. As a psychologist, if the Hindu society, collective Hindu society, comes to you for therapy, what would you describe them, or how would you diagnose us today? What would you say to us to uh, make us more prepared for anything that we are going to face in the future? Because what we have now is we are facing demographic inversions in a couple of places. Assam may be in another 3 decades or so. Kerala maybe in another 2 or 3 decades or so. Um, Andhra Pradesh is, sorry to say, but really the conversion rates there are not going down anytime soon, and there will be a demographic inversion there very soon happening. And once a critical mass is reached and uh, political power is within the grasp of people who don't identify with the ethos of Hinduism, uh, it's always downhill from there. So, as a psychologist, how would you uh, prescribe, or what diagnosis would you prescribe to Hindus to prepare themselves, to brace themselves for what's coming for them?
Uh, I think the way, you asked me how I would diagnose the Hindus. I think it's the most real threat that we are facing right now about our existence. And as I see that this is what we need to teach in homes, in schools, in colleges. The diagnosis for this is simply passivity. It is the fact that we have somewhere lost touch with our roots, and we need a leadership, which I think we do have to some extent, where a culture of openness and asking questions is coming about, right? So I would like Hindus to teach their children about the history of how Hinduism survived. For example, today, an average Hindu parent feeling scared about that his children may convert to another religion very often takes him to the temple and gives him Gita, Upanishads, and other books to read, thinking that it will happen. It is not going to happen that way. It is going to happen in a very different way when the children learn about the struggle, the suffering of our ancestors, and how they have, kept themselves together uh, in a resilient way, fought for the survival of Hinduism. So that is the way I would say that Hinduism can survive itself. It cannot survive in any other way. That's what I feel is very, crucial right now. And once that happens, then turning, there is the tide can only turn, from that point onwards when we focus upon the struggle and the suffering of Hindus. If you tell a Hindu child that a Hindu priest uh, picked his deity and ran in the well, dived in the well because he could not see the deity being crushed, that is going to infuse more enthusiasm in a Hindu child than reading holy books like Upanishads or Gita. So I think we need to inculcate that spirit of fighting back in our children if we have to survive. That's what I feel.
I'm very glad you said that. I'm really very glad you said that, Dr. Mitra, because uh, there has been a very popular kind of myth that Hinduism survived only because of its passivity and its love for their religion and their idols and their inclusivity and everything. But I very often ask this question to people who say that Hinduism survived because of its inclusivity and all these kinds of things. That what would have happened if uh, Hakkaraya and Bukkaraya in south of India would not have converted back to Hinduism and raised the whole Vijayanagar Empire? Or what would have happened if Rajashiv Chhatrapati wouldn't have taken up the sword and broken the Mughal back of the Mughal Empire? I mean, he established a kingdom which is he established a dynasty which goes on even today. I mean, the throne of the Maratha Empire sits in Satara today. Uh, I know because I'm close from there. So, and other than that, so we have had, I mean, the sword has contributed a fair share to our existence even today. So we cannot say that we only survived because of our ideals, virtues, and everything.
So,
I mean, fighting back is also a virtue, wouldn't you agree?
yeah, the average Hindu priest of the medieval times, did a lot to save his temples. He would not leave his temple. He would go ahead and jump in the well because he did not want the deity to be desecrated. And this is a story that is waiting to be told to the Hindus. We perhaps need a leadership amongst our sons, our priests, who must focus upon this aspect rather than the scriptural part of Hinduism. We have to move away from that if we have to survive.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you made that point. Uh, my concluding question, sir, would be, uh, what do you see in the future for us? I mean, for us as Hindus, the days that are past are behind us. Are we taking lessons as a society, not from the political point of view, but as a society, are we taking any lessons, and are we moving forward in a positive way?
Uh, yeah, we are moving forward, definitely, no doubt. I mean, the very fact that we are having this conversation, we did not have it, we did not have it 10 years ago, we did not have it 20 years ago. There is a
Yeah, that's
vast shift, there is a vast shift that is taking place. There are fault lines that have, appeared. And now I would say that instead of responding to the narrative, it is we who have begun to set up the narrative ourselves, and others are beginning to respond to us. So this is something that we have to make it into a movement, into a culture, right? So which was not there 10 years ago. And yes, we are on the right path. We are going forward, and we are going to bring about a change, I feel, in the next few years. You talked about Assam, Kerala, or Andhra, right? But we also need to see that there is a reverse movement, which is very subtle, which is unseen, which is below the surface, is taking place, and it is going to come out, and it is going to burst open a lot of things that probably are unseen and hidden right now. So Hinduism is coming up right now. It is in ascendancy. It's in ascendance right now in a way that is very subtle and unseen. So I think I am hopeful, and I have a lot of good things that I feel will happen to us in the future.
okay. Uh, can we move on to the audience questions if you don't mind, sir?
Sure.
Okay. First question is from Kumar PV. He writes that Muslim society always seems to be in denial of any crimes, mass genocides committed by their society, be it Kashmir or Pakistan or Bangladesh or Kerala or others. Are they trained to be so? How do we get them to own, act, and correct their generations of grave mistakes? Uh, I don't know what that act is, but I think what he's asking is how do we how do we elicit an apology from them? Uh, is there any way we can do it? I mean, we can be assertive, but it's no guarantee that they'll do it.
Yeah,
But how
I
do
agree.
we get it out of it? I mean, extorting apology is no apology, to be honest. So if we
Yeah,
so what is it that still, I mean, the thing is that this is the thing that disturbs me, that we are always focused on what should we do, what should we do so that the others treat us better. Uh, what should we do? And my question would be, should we stop obsession about us doing something so that others treat us better, and rather start pointing to others that they should be better?
yeah. I think Hindu society, if you see, has been very adaptive over the centuries. It has never demanded questions, it has never demanded answers from others, whether the Britishers or the Muslims or the Christians, anyone. We are not a society that has questioned others for what they have done to us. So I think the first step should be to change ourselves in that respect. It is an issue of justice. And if Hindus start demanding justice for themselves, I think that is going to be a very big step for them to realize that we have been treated unfairly, to realize that we have been dealt with unfairly throughout the centuries. That itself will bring about a massive change in the way we look at ourselves, our identity, and teaching our children to have respect and pride in our religion, in our civilization. So I think that is the first step. Whether I, like many others, I'm also skeptical of that. We may not get any, apology or regret from the Kashmiri Muslims community. I don't see.
What is this?
I think probably there is some hacking taking place. So I think we'll have to close and then join again.
Well, just let's close it then.
Continue. I've taken care of that.
Okay. So this has happened with my sessions a couple of times, that images like this suddenly come up, and it is usually the sign of someone who's unwelcome and who tries to hack it. So the best thing is to at that time, I think, to close down. But if we can do that, it's fine with me, right?
So we
So
have just 4 minutes left, and I'll ask you a last question.
sure.
This question is by Karthikeyan Venkataraman, I think. A popular accusation towards the movie is that it will create enmity in current society. Clearly, the movie has run for months now and no such evidence has come up. So do you think, sir, had the director been little less careful, the movie would have caused damage to society? And what is in the minds of those who are making such accusations? Even today, I told my family, this is from the people who are asking the question. I had a meeting at 9:30 and didn't feel comfortable saying what the topic is. How do I come out of this hesitation, please? Thank you.
This movie is
Sorry,
not
I
really.
think, excuse me, sir. I think somebody hacked it. I mean, there was some very bad graphic video.
I think we need to close it, Shorty, because I think someone has hacked it immediately.
That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead. I've taken the mute off, so you can please proceed.
Yeah, this is the last question. We'll
No need to stop.
conclude it after this.
Yeah, I don't think it is going to create any enmity in society. I think it is going to make Hindus being aware of, facing the truth, acknowledging it. And time comes in the life of every society, of every, when they get to know about what has happened to them, when they take ownership for that, and that leads to healing and reconciliation for the people. It does not lead to enmity. When I say reconciliation, I don't mean reconciliation in terms of forgetting. I mean reconciliation with yourself. That you have carried a wound inside, and it is no longer going to be a wound for you, but you're going to turn that wound into a fighting force. That's what I mean by reconciliation, the way it is defined in Gita, that, the wound that you carry inside, turn it into a force. I think we need to stop ourselves immediately. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Somebody has hacked it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Bye.
No, that's fine. They cannot now do anything.
No,
I've
because I
taken
can
off
see it.
all the
No,
controls.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Video off. Okay. Oh boy. Okay.